You know that feeling? You're just like scrolling on your phone, maybe killing some time,
Uh-huh.
and bam, ads for stuff you never even knew existed but suddenly kind of want.
Oh, definitely. Or just that constant stream of updates, new things.
Exactly. It feels like we're always being nudged along,
Yeah.
by things we don't quite see.
That constant pull, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very real. And it's actually what we're going to explore today.
Perfect. Welcome to this deep dive, everyone. We're digging into the ideas in a book called Köttrobotar Utkast 2.
That translates roughly to Meet Robots Draft 2.
Right. And it puts forward this really compelling idea, maybe a bit unsettling, that in our super digital world, we've almost become these meat robots, just reacting.
Reacting to digital stuff, driven by this constant urge to consume.
Yeah. Whether it's news, social media, entertainment, or just, buying things, often without really thinking why.
The book's trying to help us step back, gain some awareness of what's shaping our choices, our desires.
It's broken down into 6 chapters, looking at different angles. First is a monkey who doesn't know when to stop about our basic instincts.
Primal drives.
Then chapter 2, the elite who lead the sheep, the real winners. That's our main focus today.
Got it.
Then there's everyone is on stage, no one is in the audience, all about online personas.
Right. Social media life.
Chapter 4 is you've eaten too much information and now your stomach hurts. Info overload.
Relatable.
5 is wear and tear yourself against the wall, tackling our throwaway culture. And the last one is you don't have to participate in the madness, suggesting ways out.
So it's kind of roadmap for understanding our modern condition then.
Pretty much. And like I said, for this deep dive, we're zeroing in on chapter 2, the elite who lead the sheep, the real winners.
Because understanding that helps unlock the rest.
Exactly. We think it's key to grasping the power dynamics underneath everything in our consumer society.
Who's really pulling the strings, so to speak.
Yeah. So our mission today is to unpack who these winners are, how they get there, how they stay there, and importantly, what it all means for you listening right now.
Okay, let's do it. Chapter 2.
Right. The elite who lead the sheep. It starts by looking back, giving some historical context.
Like old class structures.
Yeah, nobility, peasants, that kind of thing. And then later, bourgeoisie and proletariat. It mentions Marx's view of the proletariat.
The working class, basically tools for production with not much upward mobility.
Right. That's the backdrop. Societies have always had these imbalances, haven't they?
Definitely. The relationship between those with resources and those providing labor is a constant theme.
But the book argues things are shifting now dramatically. It introduces this term, consumptariat.
Consumptariat, okay.
It credits Alexander Bard and Jan Suderpist, maybe from their book Netta Kraterna, but Köttrobotar uses its own spin on it.
So what's the core idea? How is it different?
Well, it tries to draw a line between a consumer, someone who buys something once in a while.
Like buying a new coat when you need one.
Exactly. Versus a consumtar. Someone who's in this state of ongoing dependency on consumption.
Oh, like the smoker example they use, needing that regular fix.
Precisely. That constant need.
That's an interesting distinction. But is that line always clear? I mean, where do most people actually fall on that spectrum? It seems a bit fuzzy.
That's a really good point. And I think the book suggests, that many of us are kind of drifting more towards the consumter end in different parts of our lives, maybe.
Right.
And it connects this drift heavily to technology, robotics, AI, software. All this stuff means we don't need that massive industrial workforce, the old proletariat, quite as much.
Okay. Automation replacing jobs. We see that.
So for businesses, the main game isn't just finding workers anymore. It's shifted.
To what?
To cultivating consumers, turning those potential workers, the proletarians, into consumter.
Ah, so the focus moves from needing people to make stuff to needing people to constantly buy stuff.
You got it. Maximize consumption, not just production.
And that has wider ripples globally.
Huge ones. The book talks about this global class divide. You've got developing nations, often with large populations acting as the modern proletariat, making goods cheaply.
Right. The manufacturing hubs?
While the developed West becomes the primary consumtariat, buying those goods at higher prices.
Which benefits corporations massively, right?
Yes.
They secure both cheap supply and steady demand.
Exactly. It's a neat system from their perspective.
A system that connects global production and consumption patterns very directly.
Now, here's where it gets particularly interesting. The book highlights industries that are naturally good at creating these consumterrors.
Like what?
The prime example given is the pornography industry.
Okay, why that?
The argument is that consumption there is almost hardwired.
No.
It taps into really primal instincts. So it doesn't need a ton of traditional marketing to build that loyal, well, consumptarian.
Because the drive is already there, basically.
Okay.
Minimal persuasion needed.
Right. And it even mentions how these platforms often become self-sustaining, with users creating a lot of the content too.
So it leverages basic human drives very efficiently to create this engaged user base. Powerful illustration.
And then the focus moves to influencers, a very modern phenomenon, mostly.
Yes, social media marketing.
Companies using public figures, online personalities. It talks about the halo effect.
Edward Thorndike's idea.
That's the one, where if you admire someone for one thing, like their looks or success,
You tend to view everything else they do or say positively.
exactly, even if it's totally unrelated, so their endorsements become super powerful, even if they know nothing about the product.
That makes sense. The halo effect is definitely real. We trust people we admire, sometimes irrationally. Our positive feelings spill over.
And the book gives this hypothetical example to make it clear. Cal, the toilet cleaner.
Okay.
Let's say Carl's really passionate about, I don't know, vintage board games. He starts posting online, sharing his hobby, builds a real following.
People who share his passion.
Right. Then a company making, say, fancy storage boxes for board games approaches him. Free stuff, maybe even payment to recommend their boxes.
The classic influencer deal.
Yeah. Khaled dreams of doing this full-time, so he agrees. Now, he might still make great content about the games.
But underlying that,
Is this subtle push to get his followers to become consumptor of these storage boxes?
it raises ethical questions, doesn't it, selling that influence? Is Cal's gain potentially his followers' loss if they buy stuff they don't really need?
Definitely. And the book touches on even murkier examples, like athletes promoting gambling sites. Big ethical concerns there.
That Cali example really shows the subtle shift, though. Passion meets commercial incentive. It's a tricky line for influencers to walk.
And this isn't entirely new, this kind of targeted persuasion. The book draws a parallel to the tobacco industry back in the mid-20th century.
Yeah. They were masters at maintaining their consumptariat.
Despite all the health risks coming out, they used misleading ads, deflected, and when the info got too widespread in the West.
They shifted focus to developing nations.
Exactly. Keep the consumption going wherever they could.
It's a pretty stark example of how far industries might go to protect their consumer base, even against clear evidence. Powerful forces at play.
Which leads us right to Edward Bernays, often called the father of modern PR.
And Sigmund Freud's nephew, wasn't he?
Yep. And he basically took his uncle's psychological theories
About unconscious desires, urges.
and applied them directly to marketing, persuasion. He figured out how to tap into those deeper drives to make people buy things.
That was pretty revolutionary, wasn't it? Moving beyond just telling people about products to actively shaping their desires.
Totally. The book mentions the famous Torches of Freedom campaign.
Linking smoking to female liberation.
Right. Recruiting women into the tobacco consumptariat by framing it as empowerment. Genius, in a way, and maybe cynical.
A powerful association.
Another example is the add an egg thing for cake mixes.
Add an egg. How did that work?
Apparently, just adding that simple step made people feel more involved, gave them a sense of ownership over the cake. And sales went up.
Wow. So it's about connecting the product to deeper needs. Liberation, ownership, involvement, forging an emotional link.
Exactly. Now here's a twist. The book suggests Bernays wasn't just being manipulative for profit. He apparently had this utopian vision.
Really? What kind of vision?
He seemed to genuinely believe that using propaganda strategically could guide society towards collective happiness, make things more harmonious.
Huh. That's not the usual image of Bernays.
No. The book contrasts this with those classic dystopias, Orwell's 1984, control through fear and oppression.
Right, Big Brother.
And Huxley's Brave New World, control through pleasure, distraction, voluntary servitude almost.
So Bernays aimed for a kind of managed happiness via persuasion.
Kind of. But the book definitely flags the potential dark side. Even with good intentions, that level of mass manipulation, well, it could easily tip into something like Huxley's world, couldn't it?
Yeah, the road to Brave New World might be paved with good intentions, or at least Bernays' version of them. It's a concerning thought control through manufactured desire.
Then the discussion shifts again to the idea of a growing knowledge gap in society.
Okay, between the informed and the uninformed.
Yeah, and how that gap creates a real power imbalance. It gives historical examples like the printing press.
Reducing the power of the clergy, who were the main readers before that.
Right. Or the Industrial Revolution, increasing the power of engineers, mechanics, people with technical knowledge.
So access to information and the skills to use it have always shaped power structures. Makes sense.
And the book's big argument is that the digital revolution is widening this gap faster than ever before.
Okay, how so?
It uses this great analogy, Lisa and Ollie.
Lisa and Ollie.
Lisa is a system architect. She designs complex digital systems, software, networks, stuff most people don't understand.
The tech creator.
Ollie is a shop assistant. His life involves using these systems, his phone, the store systems, but he doesn't really get how they work.
The tech user.
Right. Fast forward a few years. Lisa's company rolls out automated checkouts, shelf-stocking robots, slick online stores with clever algorithms she helped design.
Okay. Bad news for Ollie.
Yep. Ollie loses his job. He ends up spending more time at home, maybe gaming, maybe falling into online gambling, just consuming digital entertainment to cope or escape.
Oh.
And here's the kicker. Lisa's algorithms, the ones analyzing behavior, clicks, searches, they're now targeting Ollie perfectly, feeding his habits, his vulnerabilities, pushing ads for the very things he's consuming.
Wow. So Lisa, maybe without even meaning to, holds this immense unseen power over Ollie's life through the systems she built.
Exactly. And the book suggests Ollie might not even realize it or fight it. He just accepts it, which leans towards that Huxleyan future, again, willingly controlled.
That's a chilling analogy. It really shows the divide between the digital architects and the digital inhabitants,
Yeah.
and how opaque that power can be.
And finally, the chapter ends with this brilliant bit of irony. Catches.
Those I am not a robot tests. What about them?
You know the ones where you have to click on traffic lights or buses or storefronts?
Yeah, they're annoying.
Well, the book points out that often, especially with Google's Recap TCHA, you're actually training their AI for free.
Wait, what? Training AI?
Yeah. By identifying those objects, you're helping teach their systems, like the ones for self-driving cars, to recognize things in the real world.
No way. So clicking I am not a robot
Essentially makes you a meat robot doing unpaid work for the tech giants training their actual robot.
Wow. That is deeply ironic and kind of disturbing. Proving I'm human helps build the machine intelligence.
Right. It perfectly captures that subtle, pervasive way our digital lives feed back into the power of these huge companies, often without us even knowing.
Okay, so wrapping up this dive into chapter 2 then.
Yeah.
What's the main takeaway?
I think the central point is pretty clear. A new kind of elite has emerged, one that wields power differently.
Not through land or factories necessarily, but through understanding and shaping our digital lives, our consumption.
Exactly. By understanding our instincts, our desires, and using the tools of the digital age to leverage them. It's not always obvious power, but it's profound.
It compelled you to see that the constant stream of ads, trends, and content isn't just random noise. There are entities, systems benefiting from this consummariat.
It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Maybe take a second now listening to this. Reflect on your own day, your online habits, the stuff you buy.
Do you see any of those patterns? The nudges, the cycles of consumption?
Who's really benefiting when you click or like or subscribe or buy that thing? Do you ever feel caught in that loop, needing that regular digital fix, whatever it might be?
It brings up a fundamental question for all of us, I think.
Yeah.
How conscious are we really as we navigate this world? Are we making choices freely, or are we being guided more than we realize?
Which leads to a final kind of provocative thought. In a world so carefully designed to keep us clicking, scrolling, buying, is real freedom maybe found in the ability to consciously choose not to?
Choosing disconnection, or at least mindful engagement.
Yeah. And maybe looking at those other chapter titles in Köttrobotar, the one on information overload or not participating in the madness, could spark some ideas for untangling the strings in your own life.